Duduzane Zuma's culpable homicide case has been postponed to the 23rd of next month. He's facing 2 counts of culpable homicide and an alternative charge of negligent driving. They relate to a 2014 collision with a taxi, which resulted in the deaths of Phumzile Dube and Nanki Mashaba. Zuma rear-ended a taxi after losing control of his vehicle on the M1 highway in Johannesburg. The National Prosecuting Authority is expected to ask the Randburg Magistrate Court for a postponement in the matter. The NPA had initially declined to prosecute Zuma despite an inquiry finding that his negligent driving had led to the fatal crash. It reviewed the case after lobby group AfriForum threatened to pursue the matter through a private prosecution. Well, there was a tense standoff between members of AfriForum and the Black First, Land First movement outside court. The BLF says Zuma is being unfairly treated.
We have seen how media has been used to lynch Comrade Duduzane Zuma. We have seen how the judiciary has been captured to settle political scores, and in particular to demonize those in society who stand for radical economic transformation in the country. So we are here in solidarity with the comrade that we have seen just a few days ago, who was appearing in court in relation to allegations of corruption, in particular by the most corrupt in this country. People like SABC journalists who are implicated in massive corruption in this country, and no one is opening cases against them, and the judiciary of this country is not holding them accountable. So we are here in solidarity with this comrade, but we are here to also send a clear message to society, in particular to say that if you stand for radical economic transformation, if you call for land expropriation without compensation, and in this instance, if you are in any way associated with the former president of this country, which is Comrade Jacob Zuma, media in this country has no respect for you. The state has no respect for you. The judiciary has no respect for you. In fact, you are already pronounced as guilty before court processes and the legal process is fully followed. Media, the way it writes about Comrade Duduzane in particular, they have already demonized him. They have already pronounced that he's guilty. They have already used his association, in particular in terms of business with the Gupta family, to demonize the young man. And as Black South Africans, we believe that this is really unfair, because if we really uphold to the principle that all is equal before the law and that you are innocent until proven otherwise, surely we should see this being practiced on how this comrade Duduzane Zuma is being treated by the media and in particular by the judiciary in society.
NPA spokesperson Pindi Mjonamdwane confirmed that the case was postponed so the state can disclose the contents of the dockets to the defence team so they can start preparing their defence.
The matter has been postponed so that the state can disclose the contents of the docket to the defense team so that they can start preparing their defense and know exactly what is the state case against Mr. Duduzane Zuma.
But how strong is the state's case? Of course, much has been said about the inquiry or the inquest that was held in 2014, where it found that Mr. Duduzane Zuma was negligent in that particular incident. But the National Prosecuting Authority failed to prosecute then, but only, it seems, after pressure from AfriForum. There seemed to have been an about turn.
Let us face the facts. Indeed, the reviewal decision came after AfriForum wrote a letter to the NPA requesting a nolle prosequi certificate, and then called for the intervention of the Office of Advocate Phumzile Mzinyati, who then reviewed the decision that was taken by the Director of Public Prosecutions not to prosecute Mr. Duduzane Zuma. So it has then called for this day wherein the state has to reinstate the charges against Mr. Zuma.
Well, for more on this story, we have our senior reporter, Griselda Lewis, in studio with me, just to give us a breakdown of what happened. It looked very hectic. Let's start first with Duduzane Zuma and that case being postponed. Just give us the details of that and why.
Oh, well, we were expecting a very short court appearance anyway. We heard from the state yesterday, Nompu, that they were going to call for a postponement, this to allow the state to hand over the docket to the defence for them to study the contents of the docket, essentially what the case is against Duduzane Zuma. So we knew it would last about 10 minutes, but I think all the drama started once we went outside court. Remember that when the National Prosecuting Authority in 2014, first of all, there was an inquest into the death of Phumzile Dube, who was one of the two women who were killed in that collision. And after that, that inquest found that Mr. Duduzane Zuma was negligent in his actions, and that led to the death of Phumzile Dube. And when that happened, the National Prosecuting Authority still decided it was not going to pursue the matter, and AfriForum had essentially threatened to pursue a private prosecution. When that happened, we saw an about turn by the National Prosecuting Authority, and then the charges were instituted against Mr. Duduzane Zuma. So that's why they were inside court. They've been representing the family in trying to get this matter before court. The incident itself, of course, now 4 years later, since 2014. So when the AfriForum CEO, Carly Creel, left the court, Black First Land First had sent out a statement yesterday indicating they were going to go and support Mr. Duduzane Zuma because they were unhappy about the previous court appearance earlier on this week, where he was in the Commercial Crimes Court, you'd recall, on charges relating to state capture. So he was in leg irons. And basically, they were not happy about that. They went to demonstrate outside the Randburg Magistrates Court and essentially started pushing the AfriForum CEO, Carly Creel, around. And a lot of insults were hurled and a lot of counter-accusations of racism. And basically, they're blaming AfriForum for getting the charges basically resuscitated or reinstituted against Mr. Duduzane Zuma.
So they don't recognise that two people were killed in the process?
That's one of the questions that I asked to the Deputy President of Black First Land First. And essentially what she said to me is that while they sympathise with the family, they believe that the case against Mr. Duduzane Zuma cannot shy away from the fact that they believe is a politically motivated case. They're also linking it to the political legal woes that are faced by his father, the former President Jacob Zuma, and are saying that that part cannot be ruled out. They believe that while this incident did take place in 2014, 2 lives were lost. They believe that all of this that is now happening has got a lot to do with politics.
And what about Duduzane himself? I mean, how was his manner? He seems to be quite calm in these situations.
I spoke to him quite a number of times. He really didn't give me straightforward answers. I asked him about how he felt about being in court for a second time this week. He simply responded and said he was hungry. So not really willing to give journalists much. We asked how he was doing, whether this was taking strain on him as and his family. Well, he didn't want to say much on that, whether he has spoken to the families of the victims of that crash. He didn't want to speak about that as well. But all he did say to me was that when I asked him how his father was doing, the former President Jacob Zuma, who we understand a glimpse was caught of him outside court today, but did not jump out of the VIP vehicle that he was in. This was also confirmed by Edward Zuma when I spoke to him a couple of hours ago. None of the media were able to get any closer to the VIP protection vehicles that were lining up outside the Randburg Magistrates Court, but all he could reply and say was that everyone is okay. That was it. He was not willing to say much.
All right. Thanks very much, Griselda, for your time. That's our senior reporter, Griselda Lewis, just giving us a breakdown on the events this morning at court. Residents